We have a follow-up from Objectivist Hawk. He says, okay, makes sense, clears things up, thanks. He says, well, Bolton's also a neocon. So that's a common misconception. A lot of people would ascribe the label neocon to John Bolton, but I've got a video on my channel explaining why he's based, but he's not a neocon. And I'll explain why very briefly, because you can kind of think of there being four major tenets to what neoconservatism is. So I'm not going to go into like the history or anything. I'm just going to give you like just basics. So first one, it's socially conservative. Second, it supports liberal markets, capitalism, property rights, that sort of thing. Third one, it views the United States of America as an exceptional country, and its frame of reference, its center, is fixed to the United States. It views the United States essentially as essential and exceptional, and it views the Western world and their security as fundamentally a function of America's leadership in the world. And the argument is, and this is an argument that I agree with for the most part, that if the United States withdrew from the world, all these other countries like South Korea and Georgia and the Netherlands and everything would be totally screwed, in Estonia, and they would be left on their own, and they would fall to the enemy's forces, basically. And so in that sense, the United States is the foundation of the free world. And then the fourth tenet, and this is the really important thing, is that therefore it's the United States' job to spread democracy throughout the world, and that democracy is a normative good, and that it should be expanded, and that the United States in particular is that exceptional country, is the vanguard of the democratic world. It is its job to spread that democracy. Now, a lot of people say anti-communism. That's like a big thing. Well, those four tenets cover anti-communism, right? Capitalism, pro-democracy, you're an anti-communist, right? So that's neoconservatism. Bolton's not a neocon. He doesn't believe that it's America's job to spread democracy. Bolton's solely concerned with America's security. And so he'll have a lot of the same prescriptions as neocons, because taking out threats, taking out enemy regimes proactively before they come for you is in your national security interests. But he's not doing it to spread democracy. He's doing it to protect America, whereas neocons are doing it to protect America, and they're doing it to spread democracy. So that's really the difference between Bill Kristol and John Bolton. John Bolton likes democracy. He prefers democracy, but he doesn't think that it's America's job to spread it throughout the world. No. Bill Kristol would disagree. So that's a different disagreement there. Now, a lot of people, especially in social media spaces, think they're all the same. I'm the same. We're all the same. We're all just neocons or whatever. I'm not a neocon. John Bolton's
literally the same.
Yeah, literally the same. It's like, oh, they're all warhawks or whatever. I had some guy recently try to tell me how all these like lefties that were against George Bush and the neocons are now defending Russian neoconservatism in Ukraine. And I'm just like, no. If you were a Russian neocon, you would be a supporter of the United States, because neoconservatism is America's exceptional. It's America's job to spread democracy. So if you lived in Russia and you were a neocon, you would be an enemy of the Russian state, and you would want to leave very quickly. Putin's not a neocon. He's actually a fascist, and he's an offensive realist. He has no... Well, I mean, he views Russia as exceptional. He doesn't view America as exceptional, but he doesn't view Russia's job to spread democracy. He views Russia's job to spread... Basically, some people call it Rashism. Other people call it Eurasianism. Some people just call it fascism. But basically, think of the worst elements of the Tsar, the romanticization of the Tsarist era. Think of the state security apparatus of the Stalinist era. And think of the mafia oligarchy of the Yeltsin era. Now mix the Tsar, Stalin, and Yeltsin into one guy. So they're a crony capitalist who believes in an autocracy, who wants a police state that's willing to expand its borders by any means necessary. That's the ideology that Putin expands. He definitely thinks Russia's exceptional. So he's not a neocon. He's actually anti-neocon. He stands in opposition to any movement to spread democracy in the world because there is no democratic Russian client state. The closest one that you could find me is Armenia, and Armenia is pretty corrupt. Yeah, they're a democracy. They're not a liberal democracy. If Armenia is the closest thing in the Russian sphere of influence to a democracy, yeah, you're not a democratic world order. Like, when that's the best that they can do. And honestly, given how bad Russia is, honestly, Armenia is not that bad. They could have gotten it a lot worse. Look at Kazakhstan. Look at Turkmenistan. Look at all these other countries in Russia's sphere of influence. Look at Belarus. Like, if you had to pick a place to live in Putin's sphere of influence, you'd want to live in Armenia. So, and their president straight up told Putin, your missiles are a joke. They didn't work. So,
the E-Scanders.
Yeah, the E-Scanders. He said that they were unworkable. Straight to Putin, just said to the world, yeah, Putin sold us these missiles, brand new missiles. They didn't work. 90% failed. That's their brand new stuff. So, Objectivist Hawk says, but you want to win, but you also want your enemies to fail. Bro. Hypocrite. Objectivist Hawk says, yeah, I'm a neocon basically, though I'm not as much into the welfare state or social conservative stuff as much as they typically are. Well, neoconservatism isn't really like a welfare state ideology. You've got to keep in mind the context. When neoconservatism emerged in the 60s and 70s, it stood in opposition to paleoconservatives and libertarians, and paleoconservatives were much more socially conservative. Libertarians were much more economically free market, no safety net, laissez-faire or whatever. Neocons were not like, okay, neocons get smeared as being welfare status by libertarians because they think the government doing anything is a welfare state. Neoconservatives supported Reaganomics, though. So, which I guess if you're a libertarian is nowhere near good enough. That's still government overlording. So, like, they think that Reagan was a tyrant. They think he took their gun rights away and stuff, right? So, they think taxes were too high under Reagan, that sort of thing. So, they think any taxes are too high. So, yeah, no, and the thing is, like, neoconservatism's a complicated one because a lot of people get identified as neocons that aren't. It's also kind of a broad thing, and it's also not necessarily exclusive to the United States. Douglas Murray is a neocon who's in Britain, but the core understanding is that America's the vanguard. So he's in Britain, but he recognizes America as exceptional, basically. So it's not about where you live. It's specifically focused on America. And it's not just like random because, oh, America's like, America's just special. But it's because America's a superpower. Like, what? Is the Netherlands going to be able to free Iraq? No. You could like their policies more. You can say they got legal weed. Okay, but they're not a nuclear superpower. So it's America because look at history. Look at their industry. Look at their geographical position, everything about America. Look at their agriculture, their river routes, the way that America was able to grow. America, as it formed, as it expanded out, was basically destined to become an industrial powerhouse in a way that could dwarf Germany, that could outcompete the Soviet Union, etc. So that's why it's America. It's not even so much to say that like there's necessarily like this sort of spiritual thing about America. I think any neocon out there would recognize that if America fell to communism, they would side with Britain now or something. But it's to recognize that in the world, you have basically three superpowers: China, Russia, America. Well, if you're a liberal who supports and I say liberal in the economic sense of it, property rights, that sort of stuff, supports democracy, supports capitalism, that sort of thing. You've only got one choice. So, and that's America. And you're in Canada. I'm in Canada, right? But They're Canadian neocons. We were talking about him earlier on the show. David Frum is a neocon from Canada. He worked for George W. Bush. So it's not about where you're born. It's about recognizing the U.S. as an exceptional country. So, and they're like neocons from Bosnia, right? That makes sense. Like some of them owe their existence to America. So, you know, there's that saying from Irving Kristol that a neoconservative is a liberal who's been mugged by reality. So that's basically that there. But I mean, yeah, that's that basically. It's really specific. So
there we go.
Hello, everyone. Kevin Castley here. 3 years ago, I started Superpower Broadcasting because I was sick and tired of living in the era of cringe, where everyone from the far right to the far left is united against the liberal world, against democracy, against freedom. And so here I am making videos calling out all of the fringe and cringe lunatics and standing up for the liberal world order and all the values that we care about. So if you appreciate what I do, definitely consider joining my Patreon. That's patreon.com/superpowerbroadcasting. That's the best way that you can support me and help cover the costs of all that goes into running this channel, as well as eventually my personal expenses. Once we hit $3,000 a month, I'll be able to do this full time, and we will have a lot more content. As it stands right now, patrons help power daily content as it is, and I appreciate all of your support.